Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, guys, I am going to be talking today about the war in Europe. I'm going to be talking about NATO versus Russia and why, in my analysis, NATO, as it is right now, cannot win. Now, we seem to have slipped by this for a few weeks, guys. We've not spoken about this, so I wanted to just, open up holistically and talk about some of the differences between, you've got to understand culture, you've got to understand mentality, you've got to understand tactics, you've got to understand kit and equipment, and you've got to understand the way other militaries operate. And if you don't understand how other militaries operate, how on earth can you, propose to even fight them? So I've said for long time, guys, okay, NATO without the United States is not in a winning game against Russia. Now, the analogy I give you guys, and it's a little bit long-winded, but the analogy I give you guys is imagine two football teams, all right? Imagine two football teams. One football team is the best football team, the best 11 players the world has ever produced. The best goalkeepers, the best defenders, the best midfielders, the best strikers, literally the best players that the world has ever seen, all right? You give them the best football boots, the best shin pads, the best kit and equipment, you give them the best diet, the best training, literally the very best 11 human beings that the world can ever produce. They're the best ones there. And the other team, which would in this example be representing the Russians, would be 1,000 people. Some of them don't have football boots, some of them have trainers, some of them have shoes, some of them are in suits, some of them are in jeans. Hardly any of them have ever kicked a football. When those two teams come together, who's the better team? Well, of course, it's this team because, they're literally the best team the world's ever seen. They've got all the best stuff, the best food, the best training, the best tactics. Okay, they're the best team. Who's going to put the ball in the back of the net more times? Well, it's obviously this team because there's 1,000 of them. So when we talk about Russia versus NATO, that's what it's like. That is going to be what it's like. Oh, but Sean, I hear you say. NATO has more men than Russia. NATO has more, GDP than Russia. That does not matter, ladies and gentlemen, because it's where that's being spent. It's where that's being applied. Now, I'm going to show you guys a video real quick. And it's quite an, in fact, hang on. I'm going to show you guys a video. In fact, hang on. I'm going to show you guys on YouTube a video real quick. And if you want to understand what I mean, I'm going to show you guys this video now. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sharing a video. Can I make this big? Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys a video on YouTube now. I am Triple Streamer on YouTube, TikTok, and X, and the video is of a Russian soldier standing about 10 meters away from a landmine, shooting it to get rid of it. I'm just going to play this video.
Танковой мины. Давай, пошел. Красава!
Now, for those of you guys who are watching on YouTube and you guys have just seen that, can you imagine now, and what I'm trying to you guys can visualize the difference in mentality. Can you imagine British military coming up to a landmine? Do you know what would happen if the British military came up to a landmine? They'd stop the patrol on a track. They would stop the patrol. They'd call in the bomb disposal. They'd have to cordon the whole area off. There'd be it would take days. That would take days. The Russians just send a private soldier, go shoot that landmine until it explodes, Yuri. And you've got to understand the differences in mentality here. So which way? So now we previously talked about, the better football team. So what is the best way to clear that minefield? Well, of course, the best way to clear that minefield is to pull all your guys back, beyond the lethal zone of that munition, whatever it is, It is to, call in the experts in the big bomb suits. They walk forwards in the big bomb suits, or maybe a little robot. You send maybe a little robot in first with a little camera on it, and then everybody sat back looking. Yeah, right, it's this, it's that. Right, okay, send Jono out. Jono comes out. Jono comes out in his big suit. He puts an explosive charge next to it. He moves back, then they blow it. How long has that taken? So which is the best way, and which way is going to be quickest and more combat effective? You see where I'm going with this, guys? There's too much red tape at the moment in the NATO militaries. There's too much red tape. So I'm going to tell you guys now how the first few days. I'm going to get. I'm probably going to do the first 3 months actually. I'll do that. I'll do 3 to 6 months. I think it will take. So let's just, for the purpose of this example, let's just say that something's happened in eastern Ukraine. Donald Trump is saying, yeah, we're not going to deploy any troops. NATO, led by the United Kingdom, said, right, you know what, we're gonna come in here and we're gonna have a little swizzle with the Russians. This is as NATO is now, and I'll tell you how and what NATO need to do to change those ties. Because don't be under no illusion, guys. If NATO makes some small, well, I said they're not small, they're relatively easy to make changes, very obvious changes, it's a win. But I'm not convinced they're going to make these changes. But anyway, so let's just say, for whatever example, day one, boots on the ground in Ukraine. These are going to be the headlines that the mainstream media are going to be pumping out. Russian armor no match for British tanks. French, well, probably not. NATO infantry sweeps through Russian positions. NATO advance faster than Russians can retreat, and that's what it's going to be like for the first month, guys. It will be an absolute whitewash the first month. The second month, maybe things will start to slow down because ammunition supply chains are not getting there. Maybe there's, people have taken casualties, and because people have taken casualties, when you're a platoon and you operate with a certain number of people, it's very difficult when you start chopping and changing, when you start losing 40, 50, 60% of your platoon. Those tactics that you can use assault suppress reserve, you can't really do assault suppress reserve with 2 sections, so you have to do assault suppress. You can't really do assault suppress with 1 section. So after time, those headlines will change. And then there'll be like a stalemate. But the Russians will keep pushing because the Russians are not using highly trained troops. So they can keep pushing them forwards because they don't have to train their soldiers. They just push them forwards. They keep pushing those guys forwards. They don't have to worry about 6 months training time for these soldiers. They can literally just push those guys forwards, Also, you've got the naval conflicts. People, I promise you guys, the navies around the world, they are not ready for what's about to hit them, guys. I promise you, they are not ready for what's about to hit them, potentially from Iranian ships. Remember, we've spoke about this a few times. I've done videos on YouTube, asymmetric naval warfare. Nobody's talking about asymmetric naval warfare. The other day, was it a week ago, Iran turned all their transponders on from their dark fleet. So I'm suspecting that there's going to be an attack come from an oil tanker, and the Iranians are going to say, no, it's not ours. Look, you guys know where our dark fleet is. All the transponders are on. How do you deal with this, guys? If you're sat there watching now, guys, just pretend you are like an admiral or whatever. You're out there on your strike carrier group, and you've got your millions of your billions, maybe. You've got your billions of pounds worth of ships, your aircraft carriers, your F-35s, stealth, drones, lasers. You've got all that stuff. You've got it all. You're probably smoking a pipe. You're probably smoking a pipe, guy. You know. And all of a sudden, from nowhere, you get a drone attack. Maybe 100, 200, 300 drones come whacking into the side of your ship. Guess what? Your laser, if it's activated, if it works, your laser is only made to take down one drone at 2 kilometers. It has no idea how to deal with 100 drones at close range. No idea. So now your aircraft carrier sank. And that's what, maybe 5 billion, maybe more, I don't know, with all the kit and equipment on it. So your aircraft carrier is at the bottom of the ocean, and the only one ship, the one ship that's in proximity in the direction of where the attack came from, is an oil tanker, a civilian oil tanker. What do you do? Literally, what do you do? Do you sink it? Well, yeah, good luck with sinking an oil tanker. How is that going to look? That is an environmental disaster. So you can't sink it, right? That's the reality. You can't fire back, can you? Because it's full of oil. You can't. It's literally the best shield you could possibly imagine. Okay, so you send your special forces guys to go and seize it. Okay, fine. They get to the ship. All the drone launching stuff, they've just thrown it over the side. As soon as those drones have been launched, they just throw all the stuff over the side. The special forces come. Right, are you guys firing drones? No, not us. Oh, sorry, I do apologize, good sir. Here's £1 million, because that's what the British government would do, isn't it? You know. So, you know how people are laughing at the Russian Navy? And they are, because it is like the Russian... in the military you call it your green fleet, grey fleet, or blue fleet, whatever. How are those same people still going to be laughing when a multi-million-pound aircraft carrier, multi-billion-pound aircraft carrier gets taken down by we don't know what, by drones that appeared from nowhere, but the only ship in that vicinity was an oil tanker without a transponder on. But when the special forces guys got on there was nothing there. So who's going to have the last laugh there, guys? Who's going to have the last laugh? Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to jump onto the chat, and I am going to have to close this early tonight as well, because Tooney. Yes, hang on. I'm going to get some of the chat. Tooney over on TikTok is saying aircraft carriers don't travel alone. No, they don't, and I get that. And I was using this as an example. So let's just say it's not an aircraft carrier. Then let's just say it's a frigate or a destroyer, or or one of the surrounding logistic ships. Doesn't really matter what that ship is. What I'm getting at here is, if you launch your attack from an oil tanker, nobody's going to attack that oil tanker. Not in a million years. Nobody's going to sink an oil tanker, guys. I can guarantee you, nobody will sink an oil tanker. And when the more and more attacks come from oil tankers, the joke is real. The real joke is going to be on the West. You know, the Russians are going to be absolutely howling about this, guys. They're going to be, yes, we let them sanction us, then we make more money on oil, and we use oil tanker to destroy their multi-billion-dollar fleet. So that's where that's going, guys. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking this morning about World War III and how NATO, without the United States, is not a win against Russia. That's the reality, guys. You know, that's my well. Do you know what, guys? That is the reality. It's not my that is. Do you know what? That's my analysis. That is my analysis of this situation. Tooney is saying, isn't that what they call the shadow fleet? Yes. So for those of you guys who don't know, Russia, Iran, I would suspect other countries as well, they operate something called a shadow fleet. Now, because of the oil sanctions on these oil companies, they were not able to get their oil out. So what the governments did is they bought old tankers and they just cruise around with these with a shadow fleet, basically moving oil from one place to another. Now, it's illegal, but what does that even mean, guys? What does illegal mean? Like, what does illegal mean? Like, who's going to go and police that? Where's the oil? Where's the international oil police? Like, where is that? Like, you know, it's not even a thing. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are triple streaming, guys. We are on YouTube, we are on TikTok, and we are on X. Make sure that if you're on, guys, you've liked, follow, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all those things that help this channel grow, because it's going to be a short one today, guys, and I'm going to fire through World War III, why NATO cannot win against Russia. And that is the reality, guys, and I'm open to anyone who thinks otherwise. I'm open to people who think that it may be the context that, you know, NATO may whitewash Russia. I don't think that's the case, guys. Right, I'm going to jump over to YouTube, guys, and get some comments on YouTube. Morning, everyone. Good morning. Right, let me... Oh, guys, right, the chat's going crazy on YouTube. Donna is saying, I think of is Russia has been hitting Ukraine for a long time. Their forces are depleted. Ammo technology is failing. They're running out of gas oil. So you tell me how they would defend themselves. Okay, so what we're saying here, Donna, is... yes, all those things are true, but the front line speaks for itself. The front line is pushing forwards and forwards and forwards and forwards. You only need to go and look on... do you know what? I'll do it now for you, Donna. Hang on, give me a second. So you only have to... You know what? You know what? I'll do it in... Right, my thing's going crackers. So you only have, there's open source, there's lots of open source maps, you know, Deep State. I think Deep State Ukraine is one Deep State war map, and that's really well up to date. That literally runs 24 hours behind the situation on the ground. So if you look at that, scenario whereby they are taking ground every day. Yes, you know, you can say Russia are depleted, Russia are running out, but they're still moving forwards. And this is why we're using Western eyes. You know, we're trying to look at a problem, look at a situation with Western eyes. And like I said before, you know, I showed you guys that video, you know, the video I just showed of like the Russian going up there and shooting a mine. Well, the same thing could be said. Right, listen, guys, the Russians have run out of mine clearance kit. They can't clear these mines. Yeah, you want to bet? Send Yuri out there. Celia is saying, it's not just oil. The early 2000s, I worked in the UK. We bought lots of marble and stone that came from Iran. Lots of it. Donna is saying they're only pushing forward to intimidate NATO, and as of Ukraine, they're footing this. Yeah, they're footing this. Yes, but evidently, I think we'll win parts of Ukraine, but they will soon pursue the war in the West. Look, guys, when Ukraine is complete. Look, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the one thing, like every right now. Look, guys, everybody, the media, they're all wrong. Unless they're saying what I'm saying right now, they're all wrong, all right? The Ukrainians need more men, hundreds of thousands of men. That's what they need, maybe 250,000 men. Russia can take Ukraine, but it can't hold Ukraine, so it has to move through Ukraine. You know, any of you guys who've done any tactical operations, taking the ground is the relatively easy bit. Holding on to it is, you know, holding on to it is the harder bit. And the Ukrainians are losing, guys. You know, that is the reality. Everybody wants to give them this missile and, you know, this wonder weapon. The reality is it's a slow slog by the Russians, and they're taking more ground every day. And I do not see a NATO win. There's too much red tape in NATO. There's too much fragmentation in the context that too many different people are trying to control different things. You know, you've got the Germans who've got their own political agenda. You've got the Polish who've got a slightly different political agenda. You've got the French who've got a different political agenda. You've got the British who've well, you got mostly UK, so you know what things are like in Britain. So you've got all these different political agendas. You've got all these different military tactics. It's not as simple as saying, right, Those guys have this budget, and these guys have this budget. There's so much more that goes into this. And I'm sticking by it, guys. I'm saying right now, I do not see a NATO win. I'm not seeing a NATO win, guys. I'm really not. The one thing that I'm not 100% certain of is how NATO's air power, NATO minus the United States now. The one thing I'm not this one thing may turn the tide. I don't think it will, but it may turn the tide. NATO without the United States, what is their air power like? Now, the reason I'm saying this, I was in the military once a long time ago. We was in a bit of a pickle. Was in a bit of a pickle in the military, and we called in two. I don't know. I think they're F-16s actually. We called in two F-16s, and they were Italian F-16s. Drinking, you could smell the coffee. You could smell the coffee. So the Italian F-16s came, but the Italian F-16s, because of their policies, wouldn't drop below 10,000 feet. And that was like cloud base this night. So I think the cloud base was at 5,000 or something. So because they wouldn't drop below the cloud base, their rules of engagement were that they were not allowed to fire. So we're our little gang, little me and the lads, we were on the ground in a bit of a pickle, and we were needing the bombs from the sky, and they wouldn't come in. So this is what I'm getting at with the air power. Yes. It's all, it's great to have all this air power, but is it going to be used? Again, another example. Trying to get a medevac in Afghanistan, it was like the Brits would not come and get you. The Brits would not risk helicopters, guys, to come and get you. That's the reality. Ask anyone who was in Afghanistan. If you got a casualty, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be an American aircraft that's going to come and get you, because they're going to come and get you. NATO are very European NATO, and I mean Britain as well. They don't like to lose helicopters. They don't like to lose aircraft. Even if people on the ground are suffering, they won't send those helicopters in, guys. And I can say that from experience. So when I'm talking about NATO minus the United States now, their air power. Oh, hang on. Danny Boy on TikTok is saying, yes, that is true. Danny Boy on TikTok is saying, yes, that is true with regards to NATO Americans basically coming in with the helicopters. So what I'm getting at here is, you've got all this kit and equipment, all this fantastic stuff, but without the will to use it, without the will to think, right, you know what, there's some guys down there. Maybe I'm gonna stove this helicopter in. Yeah, it's a couple of million. I mean, I think a Chinook helicopter comes out at 30 million. Yeah, we're gonna stove this Chinook in. We're all gonna get off. We're either gonna pull the guys out, or we're all in this together. That does not happen in European countries. It doesn't, guys. It does not happen. So when we're doing this, when I'm doing this analysis, that I am conscious. I am conscious about NATO's air capabilities, but I'm also conscious that, yes, they may have the numbers and the aircraft. Are they willing to lose them in those type of numbers to go against the Russian air defense? And I don't know, guys. I don't think they are. I know for a fact the Americans would go in there and they would just blitzkrieg everything. Yeah, they'd lose a lot of aircraft. They'd lose a lot of pilots, but they get the job done. Google it is saying, Sean, the British can win against Russia on their own if they were in their prime. Unfortunately, Google it, Britain is not in its prime. I don't think I don't think Britain's been in its prime since 82. I think the last British military hoorah was the hostage rescue in Sierra Leone. Hang on, guys. Googly is saying, remember the times when we had like way less troops than the enemy and we won? What we're talking about here is like, you know, isolated military skirmishes. And yes, I agree. You know, if you've got a well-trained unit against an unwell-trained unit, you can win initial skirmishes. 100% you can. There's lots of these examples. What I'm talking about here is an industrialized conflict. And this is what, you know, I would say 99% of the mainstream media commentators don't really understand. This is going to be an industrialized conflict. So we've all seen like the Battle of Mirbat. So guys, if you guys want to go and Google the Battle of Mirbat, I think there was like 12 guys on high ground, and they were defending it against like a couple of hundred. They did have air support as well. Air support really helps. So anyway, so the Battle of Mirbat. Let's just go with the Battle of Mirbat. Let's just imagine the Battle of Mirbat didn't just last for like a couple of hours. Let's just pretend the Battle of Mirbat lasted for 3 months, and it was wave after wave after wave after wave after wave. Those guys on that high ground, they're going to run out of ammunition. And slowly but surely, those bad guys are going to keep coming. And this is what, you know, and this is what people need to understand. The numbers game. Yes, I get it. NATO on paper, we have all this money, we have all this kit and equipment. Are we going to, you know, are NATO going to use that? Are NATO going to send, fight air patrols in and around the locations of Russian air defense? Absolutely, I would say absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would say that the Americans would blitzkrieg the whole Russian air defenses and then say, listen, we've got air superiority now. This is how we're rolling. Yeah, we've lost a lot of aircraft, but you know what? We've got freedom of movement now because we've got that air superiority. And I just don't see that NATO have that have that stomach. Donna is saying, Scott, Trump mocks Putin over response to US sanctions. We reported last night on Vladimir Putin's defiant response to the sanctions imposed on by Donald Trump on Russia's 2 biggest oil companies. You can't sanction these oil companies, guys. Like, you can't do it. Not at this scale. You can't, like, okay, right, so let's just say that America sanctions Russian oil. Okay, right. So who can buy Russian oil? There's lots of countries who will buy Russian oil, guys. Trust me. There's lots of countries that will buy Russian oil. So it's not going to really slow anything down. I mean, look what happened when look what happened when we started sanctioning people. What happened is Russian oil got sent to India, got refined, and then the Indians sold it back to Britain at a massive markup. But don't worry, we're not buying Russian oil. It doesn't work, guys. It doesn't, these sanctions don't work. They really don't. The sanctions only, like, at this scale, at this macro scale, like, sanctions don't work. Silly is saying, were there local elections in Wales that Reform had big support in the last few days, or am I getting? No, so there was local elections in Wales. Reform UK did not win. I think Plaid Cymru won, which is like the local Welsh party. Well, hang on. Privkaro is saying, do you think Russia will leave Ukraine a little of their moving on other parts of the EU? They would rather go back there if needed. No, I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna keep the pressure on Ukraine. Look, guys, everybody knows that the Ukraine, and I'm not taking anything away from Ukrainians. They need more men. They need more men. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point, guys. It doesn't matter what kit and equipment you give them now, what airplanes you give them, what long-range missiles you give them. They're not doing anything. And you can tell they're not doing anything because if you go and look at the front line in Ukraine, they're losing ground every day. Siligaladi is saying, I checked and the Russian economy grew beyond expectations to 4.1%. So, I mean, there, you just literally there, guys. Let me pin that again. So, Siligaladi here on YouTube is saying, the Russian economy is actually growing. So, let's just contextualize this. Guys, okay? So, we're putting all these sanctions on Russia and their economy is actually growing more, more, like Silly's saying, beyond expectations. So tell me how these sanctions are working. And remember, we're not, NATO are not just facing off against Russia. NATO are facing off against Russia, Iran, North Korea, and big old Uncle China. And I'm still 50-50 about India, guys. India and Turkey, they're they're big players, and I am 50-50 about India and Turkey. I keep thinking India is going to go one way, then it's going to go the other way. You've got Pakistan. You've got all these countries that can provide manpower. They can provide something. And while here in the West, we do, guys, here in the West, we're told that our kit and equipment is superior, which it is. It is superior. But what do we mean by superior, guys? What is the purpose of the military? What is the purpose of the Navy? What is the purpose of the Air Force? Is it to take and hold ground or, protect the... I mean, it could be argued that we don't have a Navy at the moment because we can't protect our shores. Right, let me get some more comments, guys. Biker Daz is saying we have oil and we have oil, we have coal. We do, Biker Daz, but again, like what I've just been saying, we may have all these things, but nobody's willing to use them. Nobody's willing to get them out the ground. Jules is saying Russian progress in Ukraine is based on their financial growth. I think maybe am I reading that right, or did you get that the wrong way around, or did you get the Russian financial growth is based on their progress in Ukraine? I think what Jules is talking about there is Russia's whole economy now is a war economy. So they are making things for the war, and they are a war machine now. If the war collapses, I actually think if the war collapses, Russia's economy would collapse. If the war keeps going, I think they know this, guys. I do think they know this. Googly is saying the British Air Force and Navy could solo the Russians. I'm not seeing it, guys. I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing this. And again, I'll come back to what my personal experience of Britain. Let's go through the countries that I know would not send helicopters. Britain, definitely. Denmark, definitely. Italy, definitely. These are the countries that France, definitely. They're the countries I know of not, you've called for helicopters and they say, right, is the landing zone secure? And you're like, Absolutely not, mate. We are in a shit fight, and I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I don't even know where the landing zone is, but we're in this area. Come towards us and pick us up somewhere. You know, the Brits would say you need to secure an airfield. You know, you need to secure a landing zone. The Americans will just fly over and say, "Hey, man, we're here. This is Billy Bob Thornton. This is Billy Bob Raven, and I'm on a UH-60, and I'm coming in hot. Yeehaw!" They land, you get on it, you fuck off. You know, the Brits, NATO, they will want you to do they want a NATO T. They'll want all the fucking landing sites secure, and they won't come. So yes, you know, there's some fantastic kit and equipment. There's some fantastic drones. There's some fantastic technology. When people understand the attrition rate, they're not gonna do this. I've seen this with ground forces as well, Royal Marines. I've seen this with ground forces, guys, Royal Marines. When the Royal Marine battle, I don't know if it's a battle group. When the Royal Marines took over from three power battle group in Helmand, I think it was maybe 2006 or 2007. It might have been 2005. I don't know. When the Royal Marines took over from the 3-power battle group, they looked at the attrition rate, the guys they'd lost, and the injuries they'd sustained patrolling the areas in around Musakala in Sangin, and the Marines were like, "Yeah, we're not going to be doing that. That looks a bit too dangerous. So we're just going to hide. We're not going to send out that many patrols." So they didn't send out those patrols, which gave the enemy freedom of movement, and they actually took more casualties. And Googly here, guys, on TikTok is absolutely convinced that the British Navy could destroy the Russian Navy. I've got no experience, naval guys. I've got no naval experience, which I think is a positive, because I don't see these threats coming from the sea. I'll rephrase that. I don't see the naval threats coming from the Russian Navy. I see the naval threats coming from oil tankers. That is the reality, guys. You know, I feel the threat is going to come from oil tankers. Can you imagine, guys? Listen, if you're on right now, we are talking about World War III and why NATO cannot win as they are against Russia. So we talked about the naval conflict. We've just talked about the air campaign. You know, and I'm not convinced that the NATO countries would be happy losing that amount of aircraft. So they won't send them. So because they're not being massively aggressive, they will lose more aircraft by not being aggressive. It's like if you're hammering a nail, guys. If you're hammering a nail, you can tippy-tappy, pussyfoot around that nail. You're going to hit on, or you can just think, right, get me a big hammer and fuck off. You might even smash the piece of wood, but you get the job done. I'm all for big hammers, guys. Big hammers, little nails. So we talk. I'm going to talk again now about the naval conflict, because people, you know, there's quite a few people jumping on the. Few people saying that the NATO Navy would destroy the Russian Navy. Yes, and I agree. Their blue fleet or their grey fleet, whatever they call it. But that's not where the fight's going to be. The real strikes are going to come from cargo ships. The real strikes are going to come from oil tankers. Imagine this. You know, imagine this. Look, guys, everybody's posting. What about the battle of this? What about this battle? What about this battle? Guys, the battlefield's changed, all right? Nowhere in human history I don't believe it's ever happened before, the threat of asymmetric naval warfare, whereby you get strikes now coming from oil tankers. That's where they're coming from, guys. I promise you, Mark this video. Then, and I've done this video on. I've done this like maybe last year or something. I did a long video on YouTube. I talked about the real threat of asymmetric naval warfare. Absolutely nobody's talking about it. People are actually laughing at the Russian Navy. It's not going to be funny, guys, when millions and millions of pounds of equipment sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And then you've just got an oil tanker sailing off. See you later, guys. Did you ever work with Norwegians in the military? No, I didn't. I never worked with Norwegians. I feel like they are committed or totally not. Wonder how committed they are to the military. Sean, Bob News, right? What's going on? Right, hang on a minute, guys. What's Bob News here? What's Sean? What's Bob News? What's happening here? Somebody called Bob News. Well, listen, X82 is saying exactly the right thing. NATO only survives with the United States. I agree 100%. Without the United States, guys, NATO is not a win against NATO is not a win against Russia. It's not. That's the reality. Bob's blowing to political pressure. Right, guys, what? Oh, right, okay, yeah, right, okay. Bob Villain. Yeah, Bob Villain. He's a little piece of work, isn't he? I watched this interview with Louis Theroux. I was gonna do a thing on I was gonna do a reaction video on YouTube. I just haven't. I'll probably do that. No, I won't be able to do it today because I've got to leave early today, guys. I was gonna do a reaction video to Bob Villain on Louis Theroux, and isn't he like one of the worst? He's got to be one of the worst human beings. I mean, you know, when he's standing up there with like his shirt off, strutting around. But then, like, when you get to see his face close up, you're like, really? You're the person throwing those threats? Like, honestly, like, if I was to fight that guy, I promise you, I would have it written in the contract. I wouldn't even throw fists. I wouldn't even strike him. I'd say, look, Bob, I'm going to give you a chance here. You know, you like jumping up there saying you chat shit. You get banged with your big one bomb. I'll be happy with that. I would even be happy to make no aggressive moves, only defensive moves for like the first, I don't know, for the first round. First round, I'll give it to Bob. I'll say, right, Bob, I'll do you a favor, mate. I will not make any aggressive moves. And I'm 10 years older than him. This guy's so pathetic. I'm 10. Hang on. I mean, this guy's so pathetic. I mean, he's the typical guy who got the pass in life because he's throwing the race card out there. You know. Like this guy at Cambridge, you know this guy at Cambridge University? He's literally got to get into Cambridge, you need to have a certain grade level. And he didn't meet that criteria. So they literally took him, not because of his grades, because of something else. Now, if you're assuming that Cambridge is an academic entity, then you've got to assume, you've got to question, okay, so you're not taking the smartest people, you're taking other people. Why? Why are you taking other people? But yeah, going back to Bob Villain, he's cancelled some of his Leeds and Manchester. I don't know, guys. Do you think it was because I said I was going to turn up to one of his gigs? He said on one, he was in Glastonbury, and he said, somebody, I think he may have got heckled, and he said, How about you turn up to my gig and I'll bang you? I'm like, you're threatening to, like, what? You're threatening your fans, or, well, maybe not fans, maybe hecklers. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Do you think I should turn up? He's a pathetic piece of work. I mean, I get it, all right? You get people who are totally against what's happening in Gaza. I get that, you know. I totally get people being against that, you know. Don't shout what he shouted to the IDF. Those soldiers, those Israeli soldiers, they have no say about where they're being deployed. If you're going to be critical of anyone, be critical of the governmental structure that's sending them there. But, you know, don't shout, you know, it's ridiculous. It's definitely inciting violence. If Lucy Conley got 2 years and 3 months in jail, and Bob Villan gets nothing, how's that even, like, you know, how's that even a thing? But yeah, I think a fight with me and Bob Villan, guys, I think it will go down like this. I will be laughing that he even took the match for like the first round. I would be laughing so much. I would, guys. I would be laughing so much. I wouldn't be taking it seriously. I think the second round, I'd say, right, Bobby. Bobby, second round, I'm not going to strike. But what I'll do is I'll throw you around a little bit and knock you on the floor, wrestle you down. The third, I think we'd have to have a full mixed martial arts 5 rounds, like championship rounds, so 5 25-minute rounds. And you would see, like, you would see that my cardio would just, like, he will be breathing like a little puppy that's gone on his first run. And my breathing would be calm, regulated, like an ice-cold killing machine. Yeah, I think I'd finish him in the last minute of the last round after having a laugh. I would, guys. I think I'd choke him out in the. I don't know. I put it up. I put it up as a question. I do a question on TikTok, or I do a. How would you do the things? A poll. I do a poll. How should I finish Bob Villan? Do you want me to knock him out? Do you want me to do it with a punch? Do you want me to do it with a spinning back hook kick? Do you want me to whack him in the chest? Do you want me to choke him? Do you want an armbar? I don't think you can do leg locks in. I don't think you can do leg locks in mixed martial arts. It's too bad that the knees pop all the time. So I put it to a poll. I put it out to you guys. I said, right, guys, how do you want me to finish him? And whatever you guys go with, I would, whatever the percentage is, I would go with that. Right, guys, I'm going to get the last comments here on TikTok, and then I am going to have to close this down early because I've got to go and get some. I've got to go and get some more wood. Lee Robinson is saying 70,000 people have been killed in the Gaza conflict as of October the 7th. Katie, officer, is saying yes, go. Go. Right, yeah. So I think that's Bob Villan's little thing in Manchester. Shelley Jelly is saying, good day, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day. It is indeed. Timsky is saying, I was UK National Detachment mixed into NATO forces. Good 4 years of my service. Pix is saying, hit them hard. That's how we survived in Afghanistan. You do have to hit people hard, guys. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down early. I'm going to close it down early on TikTok. I am going to jump over to YouTube for a little bit. But again, guys, I need to close this down because I need to go over to, I need to go and get some wood. It's that time of year, guys. I went and got some yesterday. I've got another little stash of wood I need to collect straight after this. But look, guys, I just wanted to do this live stream because, I think we've come off topic a little bit with the not off topic actually. We've been focusing on what's been happening domestically in the United Kingdom. But look, guys, let's be under no illusion. We are still heading towards global conflict on an industrial scale, yet one that we cannot win. And by we, I mean NATO. Now, the adjustments that we, like NATO, need to make to win this war is simple. We need a conscript army. That's the reality, guys. We need a conscript army. A conscript army that people are not going to get too upset if they don't come back. So that's all I'm going to say with that, guys. Now, if you guys can think anywhere where there's been thousands of young men, you know, that people won't matter if these young men don't. I don't know, guys. Listen, that's what I'm thinking. I really do think that service for citizenship is coming, guys. I really do. I think service for citizenship is coming. Look, guys, when you're trying to explain to your friends the NATO analogy, and people are saying, oh, but NATO's got all this, NATO's got this, NATO's got this, oh, we've got this. Yes, that's true. Are they going to use it? Really? Let's look back through recent precedents. I can say with 100% certainty, certain countries will not risk their helicopters. Certain countries will not risk their aircraft. Certain countries will not risk these big, fancy, shiny pieces of kit and equipment. So it's all well and good. It's all well and good having all this kit and equipment. If you're not going to use it, pointless having it. Oh, but sure, NATO's got a budget of this. NATO's got this budget. They spend this much money on defense. Doesn't matter. If that spoon costs $100,000 to NATO because that spoon has to go through testing, it has to go through rigorous checks and balances, all the security, all the red tape in making that spoon, you know, all the red tape making that spoon, and that spoon comes out at 100 grand. If the Russians are making 6 for a quid, what does that budget mean, guys? What does that budget mean? It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It's where you put that money and the application of those funds. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am closing this down. I think I'm going to be back. Well, I will be back on later on tonight, but I will be a little bit early tonight, guys. It's either going to be a long one. It may even be a long one. So I am going to be back on a little. I'll be back on later today, guys. A little bit early, I think, maybe an hour early. I don't know. But I am going to jump over to YouTube, guys, and then I'll be closing that one down relatively quickly as well. If you're not going to jump over to YouTube, if you're going to jump over to YouTube, guys, I'm the Real Raven 1 on YouTube, and I'm the Real Raven 1 on X. Make sure you like and follow and subscribe and all that stuff, guys, because I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Lisa Jane is saying, Sean, my daughter hates watching the news or hearing what's happening in the world, but she rings me every night so she can. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Lisa. Listen, you know, there's a lot of big issues in the world right now, guys. There really are a lot of big issues in the world. I try to approach these big issues not as deep and dark, and something that's, you know, that people can actually, you know, try and understand and listen to. Yes, of course, you know, there's lots of nuance. There's lots of granular. I forgot how to talk. There's lots of nuance. There's lots of granularization when I'm talking about these things. I don't think that NATO right now can win against Russia. And all the arguments that people have put, against these things, I totally accept those arguments. But when I give you guys my analysis of NATO and Russia, I've worked in both of those spheres. I do need a new curtain up there. I need like a blackout there because that sun is just this disgusting. I have worked in all these spheres and I understand how things work. So I don't know if you guys were just on, but let me share it again. So I shared this video with you guys earlier. Let me share it again. So I shared this video with you guys earlier. Now, this is a Russian clearing a landmine in Ukraine. Now, before I play this video, if this was the NATO military, this is what they would do. They would identify it as a landmine. They would then have to cordon off the area to, like, evacuate everybody back to a safe distance. Then they'd send in a little drone on a little robot drone thing with a little camera. They would look. They would do their inspections. Then somebody would, maybe a couple of hours later, somebody had come out with one of those suits on, the green suits with the helmet, They'd place an explosive charge down behind it. They'd walk back there, and they would blow it up. How long does that take? Like in the battle procedure. Now you can imagine a big battle. How long is it going to take to do that all the way up that track? It's going to take forever. It's going to take forever. And this is how the Russians do it. Sorry. And how much did that cost as well? How much did that cost with the little drone? Those little drones, they probably cost like $100,000 at least. You've got that for $100,000. You've got that whole suit. Maybe that's $100,000 again. The men, the manpower, the time lost. How much did all that cost in kit and equipment? Lots. How much did this cost? So I want a cost analysis now, guys. How much you think this cost? Oh, wrong button.
Противотанковые мины. Давай, пошел. Красава!
So there you have it, guys. 4 rounds. How much do you think that cost? How much do you think that cost to deal with that landmine? So when people are saying, oh, Sean, but NATO's budget's this much. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But, what does that mean? I would say that cost $2. At the very max, that cost $2. $2. 4 rounds. Let's say those rounds cost 50 cents each, and they don't. They cost a lot less. So let's just say that cost $2. How much would it cost for NATO to do the same thing with the drones and the robots and the time? I can keep going, guys, and giving you guys these examples, and it's not the teeth arms that are going to let this thing down. It's not. I promise you guys, it's not going to be the teeth arms like the parachute regiment and stuff. They're not going to be the ones that let the team down. They're going to be pushing, fighting, taking ground. That's going to be the problem. How slow these things are. The red tape. Oh, you can't do that because of this. Why? Oh, it's not being cleared. What do you mean by cleared? Oh, we need to send these technicians out there. We need to do this. We need to do that. It takes time, money, effort, cost, resources. Endeavour to Preserve is saying the United States will not go to war against Russia, but if they step out of line, the Department of War would stop them in their tracks. I think what's being set up right now, guys, is a scenario where the United States goes into the Middle East, and I've said this for over 2 years. Like, this is the scenario that's being set up right now. The United States are going to go into the Middle East, and Britain is already taking the lead in this coalition of the willing. Putting a time on that, guys, is very difficult, but that is looking like it's the direction of travel right now. Listen, guys, I am going to have to close this down now because I've got to go and get some wood. I've got to get in the car. I've got to put some trousers on. Can you imagine? I've got to wear trousers. I've got to be a trouser man. I've got to go put some trousers on. I've got to go get some wood. It's that time of year, although the sun is out. It's getting very cold. I will be back on later today, guys. I think I want to focus again on what's happening in the United Kingdom. It's come out again that this... the guy, Runner Cabana or whatever his name is, the guy, I can't even like talk about him really. The Southport, I don't even want to call him a monster, that thing from Southport. Turns out a teacher a teacher in the United Kingdom flagged him up as a sinister student, but she got told to take out the word sinister because it was racially profiling him. Go figure. She got called a racist. And for those of you guys who've been watching my channel, you guys know I've got a friend who a similar thing happened. Reported people across the road. They got a, they got a warning, a caution themselves for being racist. So what's the point? What's the point? And why don't we just make that shit legal in the United Kingdom and just get on with it? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, listen, guys, I am going to close this down now. I will be back on later on today. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and thank you for hanging out with me this morning, guys. I'll see you later.